As an MGB officer, it was Leo's duty to study the works of Lenin. In fact, it was every citizen's duty. He knew that social excesses, crime, would wither away as poverty and want disappeared. They hadn't reached that plateau yet. Things were stolen, drunken disputes became violent. There were the orki, the criminal gangs. But people had to believe that they were moving toward a better state of existence. To call this murder, infanticide, was to take a giant step backwards. Leo had been taught by his superior officer, his mentor, Major Janusz Kozmin, about the trials of 1937, where the accused had been briefed by Stalin that they had lost faith. Enemies of the party were not merely saboteurs, spies, and wreckers of industry, but doubters of the party line, doubters of the society which awaited them. Applying that rule, Fyodor, Leo's friend and colleague, had indeed become an enemy. Leo's mission was to quash any unfounded speculation, to guide them back from the brink. Talk of murder had a natural drama, which no doubt appealed to certain types of fanciful people. If it came to it, he'd be harsh. The boy had made a mistake for which he'd paid with his life. No one else need suffer for his carelessness. Maybe that was too much. He needn't go so far. This could be resolved tactfully. They were upset, that was all. Be patient with them. They weren't thinking straight. Present the facts. He wasn't here to threaten them, at least not immediately. He was here to help them. He was here to restore faith. Leo knocked, and Fyodor opened the door. Leo bowed his head. "I am very sorry for your loss." "Thank you for coming." Fyodor stepped back, allowing Leo into the room. Every seat was taken. The room was crowded, as though a village meeting had been called. There were elderly people, children. It was obvious that the entire family had gathered. In this kind of atmosphere, it was easy to imagine how feelings had been whipped up. No doubt they'd encouraged each other to think that there was some mysterious force to blame for their little boy's death. Maybe that made their loss easier to come to terms with. Maybe they felt guilty for not teaching the boy to stay clear of the railway lines. Leo recognized some of the faces around him. They were Fyodor's friends from work, and they were suddenly embarrassed at being caught here. They didn't know what to do, avoiding eye contact, wanting to leave but unable to. Leo turned to Fyodor. "It might be easier to talk if it was just the two of us." "Please, this is my family. They want to hear what you have to say." Leo glanced around. 20 or so sets of eyes were fixed on him. They already knew what he was going to say, and they did not like him for it. They were angry that their boy had died, and this was their way of expressing that hurt. Leo would simply have to accept that he was the focal point for their anger. "I can think of nothing worse than the loss of a child. I was your colleague and friend when you and your wife celebrated the birth of your son. I remember congratulating you, and it is with terrible sadness that I find myself consoling you." A little stiff, perhaps, but Leo meant it sincerely. It was met with silence. Leo considered his next words carefully. "I have never experienced the grief that follows the loss of a child. I don't know how it would make me react. Perhaps I would feel the need to blame someone who I could hate. But with a clear head, I can assure you that the cause of Arkadiy's death is not in dispute. I have brought with me the report, which I can leave with you if you wish. In addition to this, I have been sent to answer any questions you might have. Arkady was murdered. We want your help in investigating. If not you personally, then we would like the MGB to place pressure on the procurator to open the criminal case." Leo nodded, trying to maintain an air of reconciliation. It was the worst possible beginning to their discussion. The father was adamant, their position entrenched. He was demanding the formal opening of an ugolovnya tela, a criminal case, without which the militia wouldn't investigate. He was calling for the impossible. Leo stared at the men from work. They realized, whereas the others did not, that this word, murder, tarnished everyone in the room. Arkady was caught by a passing train. His death was an accident, a terrible accident. Then why was he naked? Why was his mouth stuffed with dirt? Leo tried to fathom what had just been said. The boy was naked? That was the first time he'd heard of it. He opened the report. The boy was found clothed. Now that he read the line again, it struck him as an odd stipulation. But there it was, the boy was clothed. He continued to scan the document. Having been dragged along the ground, his mouth contained dirt. He closed the report. The room was waiting. Your boy was found fully clothed. Yes, there was dirt in his mouth, but his body was dragged by the train. Some dirt in his mouth is to be expected. An elderly woman stood up. Although stooped by age, her eyes were sharp. That is not what we were told. It is very unfortunate, but you have been misinformed. The woman pressed ahead. Evidently she was a significant power behind this speculation. The man who found the body, Taris Kuprin, was scavenging. He lives 2 streets away. He told us Arkady was naked. Here, not wearing a single item of clothing. A collision with a train doesn't undress a boy.